Hey everyone, welcome to Rock Bottom Syndicate. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. Rock Bottom Syndicate is about people who have a story to tell to inspire others to consistently, persistently pursue their potential. Rock Bottom is an opportunity to learn, change course, and tell your story to help yourself and help others. Your secrets are the prison of your emotions. Ask for help, tell your story. Alan, hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Alan Lazarus from the Hyperconscious podcast.
Yes.
Is how we met. We interviewed Kevin earlier today, so your shows will be back to back.
Yes, I just got to witness that. That was unbelievable. I teared up more than once.
Yeah, so we're primed.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're ready. I'm
we're
in my
primed.
emotions already, for
So
sure.
this is different than the Totally Well podcast or the Hyperconscious podcast in that we're really trying to slow down and hear your story of a rock bottom moment or moments in your life and your insights around that.
Sounds good. Do you want me to start from the beginning?
I want you to start wherever you're comfortable.
Okay. So the beginning for me, when I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident. He was 28 years old at the time. And so I grew up without a father, and some of the pain that created in my family was very challenging, but I was fortunate enough to have, I always say I had two mothers. My sister, I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me, 2.5, I think. And we were so close. I mean, she took care of me. There's pictures of her holding me up. I was like this really fat baby blob that like would keep on like falling over when we were watching Winnie the Pooh, and there's all these photos of it, and she would like lift me up. And my mom promised her that she would have someone to play with. And when I came out, apparently I did nothing other than like eat and poop. And she's like, Mom, like I can't play with him. He doesn't do anything. And she's like, he will eventually, I promise. So she took care of me. She actually taught me. She potty trained me somehow. I don't know how. But so I did kind of have two parents. I kind of always have. And so I would say I was raised by two women. Yeah. And so that's where the story started. Fast forward a bit, I think I'm like anywhere between 8 and 11, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that my uncle at the time worked for the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, WPI, in Worcester, and he was a track and field coach there. He used to try to teach me triple jump and high jump and all these things before I even knew it. And I remember driving past there because they lived in Holden, and my mom would look at the sign at the bottom of the hill at WPI there and say, Alan, really smart people go there. You should go there one day. So she planted the seed. And I realized in hindsight, my mom was always planting these seeds, like always. And so fast forward in high school, I remember, actually, I'm in middle school, it's 8th grade, and I remember my mom did this. She said, Alan, if you're smart enough, life is about choices. If you're smart enough, you can do anything you want in the world. And I still believe that to this day, but she let me take 8th grade off. She said I'd always gotten straight A's and been praised for my academic excellence up to that point, right? Because my mom, I don't think she focused as much on academics, and maybe she didn't have some choices because of some of the tragedies that happened early in her marriage and in her life. So she always wanted me to have choices, so she always focused on education. And so she said, if you take you can take 8th grade off and just have fun. Okay, this is the only year ever where I got like C's and B's. As long as you promise me in high school, you work really hard and get the President's Award. So the President's Award is not getting a single B. So basically you have to have above a 95 GPA for all 4 years, every report card. You cannot miss once. And so I did. I took 8th grade off, which took tremendous courage for her to trust me to do that because that could have slid right off the mountain there. And then in high school, I tried really, really hard, and I did get the President's Award. It's still in my room to this day. George Bush signed it. And I ended up going to WPI. So that, I still say, is one of the best decisions I ever made. But here's the interesting thing. So you're in high school, right? And school always came really easy to me. And so for people like Kevin, who maybe wasn't as good in the academic environment or didn't believe in himself in that arena or maybe didn't have that guidance, he probably feels worse about himself because he's not in an arena where he's being praised for a certain thing. He was being praised for baseball. So I was very fortunate to be good at academics and to be encouraged to do academics. But here's the thing, I got straight A's in high school. I was like the smart kid, right? Graduated 8th in my class. I go to WPI. Turns out everyone's as smart as me. Way smarter than me, actually. So, little town of Uxbridge, Massachusetts, it turns out there's some other schools that had some levels of academic excellence that I had never seen. And so I go from like getting a physics award in high school to like, oh my God, I just went through 2 weeks at WPI and we surpassed everything I learned in high school. So it was this whole other world of like, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? So I'm in electrical and computer engineering, and I get that degree. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But I've always been good at surrounding myself with people who are excellent at what I want to be excellent at, and I think that's one of the most important things. So I surrounded myself with this group of people where I was the fun one, and they were the smart one, and we would get together and have fun and be smart together, which was wonderful. So keep fast forwarding. I went into corporate America. I was an engineer, didn't like that. Went into product management, marketing, job hopped a lot. Now I'm getting to my rock bottom moment because I know this is the rock bottom syndicate. All right, so I'm working in corporate America for a company called Cognex. And I'm, at this point, an outside sales engineer. I started an inside sales team, and I'm an outside sales engineer. I'm at the Providence Place Mall with one of my best friends who I grew up with. His name's Keith. I call him Kiki. And this is a Sunday night. And up to this point, I'm working for a company called Cognex, and their motto is work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. Now, let's go back a little bit. And in high school, I did some partying and some drinking, probably younger than a lot of people do. My sister was older, and I remember, she would host parties, and I'd be friends with all her friends, and there'd be alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so me and Kiki was there, would partake in this from an age where we didn't probably have the maturity to handle that substance. Mm-hmm. So those roots go deep for me with alcohol. So then through college, that got very encouraged because I was at a tech school where I was the fun one, mm-hmm. right? And I was trying to bring value to the smarter people that I desperately needed to pass that degree. Thank you all, if you're listening. Could not have done it without you, seriously. Engineering's a whole thing. Then I go into corporate America, and so I did engineering first, then I went into marketing, global product management, several different companies. Eventually I end up in sales. Mm-hmm. Now it's funny because Kiki's dad, which is one of my original role models, always said, you're gonna end up in sales. I said, no, I wanna be an engineer. Because my mom told me WPI is valuable, be an engineer, you'll make good money, you're good at math. Again, he's like, no, you're gonna end up in sales. Now, I realize now, hindsight's 20/20, my father was in sales, and that's why he was telling me that, because I'm a natural salesman from his perspective, and he was an engineer, and he knew that the salespeople, he always said, salespeople make the most money, you're gonna be in sales. So he ended up being right, which is fascinating. So I'm working for a company called Cognex, and their motto is work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. I used to say this, I work hard and play harder. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now in sales, you have a very large social life. The more social you are, the more persuasive you are, the more influence you have, the more sales you make. Mm-hmm. And so I brought all my friends from college that I partied with to Cognex, mm-hmm. not all of them, but several of them. Mm-hmm. And I got these huge referral bonuses because Cognex wants to retain the best talent, I want bonuses, everything's great. The thing is the culture there is, and the sales culture in general, this isn't unique to Cognex. Cognex is wonderful, so I want to make that clear. But drinking is encouraged. It's not on the surface encouraged, I drink. It's just part of the culture, mm-hmm. okay? And anyone who's worked in sales understands that social life is a big part of that. You basically socialize for a living. So high school partied, college partied a lot. WPI has 12 fraternities, I think 5 sororities, and even more now. And I also partied all over New England as well. And I wasn't a bad kid or anything like that. I didn't have bad intentions. But in college, having fun is very encouraged, and alcohol tends to be a part of that, okay? So now I'm in corporate America, and that's still going. Mm-hmm. So up to my rock bottom moment. We're at the Providence Place Mall. I'm with Kiki. We just watched the second movie, 300, Rise of the Empire, or something like that. We're paying for parking. Now, we're not at the bar. We're not doing anything stupid. We're actually having a pretty chill Sunday night. There's little kids around. And I get hit from behind in the face. And I turn around, and there's this dude who's literally sizing me up, and I saw his eyes, and to this day, it's I could tell he's trying to kill me. And unless you've been in that moment where someone's trying to kill you, you don't really understand. And in a millisecond, I thought 2 things. Either 1, he thinks I'm someone I'm not, and he thinks I'm in some Providence gang or something, and he's like Kodo in the building, and he's fighting me, right? Or number 2, he's psycho. or that's not the proper term. He's crazy. Also not the proper term. Point is, I run. So fight or flight, I chose flight. Now, I grew up with Kiki. Every time we heard a coyote in the woods, we'd run together. We'd run, okay? We never fought, we ran, okay? So in my head, I'm also thinking he's going to run too. He doesn't run. Fight or flight, he chose neither. So he just got beaten up. Now, I'm on my way back. Fortunately, someone sees this, pulls the fire alarm. The fire alarm takes the schizophrenic out of his rage, and they detain him. He tells the cops, we tried to kill him. It turns out he didn't take his medication, and for some reason is watching the movie 300, which is the most violent movie ever of all time. And so this whole thing happens. This messed with me a lot, because not only did I run like a coward, but if he had a knife, I'd be dead for sure. And when something like that happens to you, you try to find a meaning in it. Like, what part did I play in this? Was it the energy I was giving off? What could I have done differently? So this is when I started bodybuilding, because I said to myself, and this is kind of one of the takeaways, whenever you're in deep emotional pain and you're questioning everything, you either escape into a vice and escape the pain, or you develop a virtue. And that's something I've come to live by, and that's a recurring theme in my life, and I think the human condition. So instead of escaping into a vice and just drinking and partying more, I decided to develop a virtue and get strong. I decided if that ever happens again, and I got made fun of for running. I got told I got left Kiki behind. Like, all my friends were like basically calling me a coward and stuff. And I thought he was gonna run too. But anyways. So I start bodybuilding. I gained 60 pounds in 6 months. And I just go hardcore. I'm still working at Cognex at the time. And I stopped drinking. I still drink a little bit, but not nearly as much as I used to. 60 pounds in 6 months. I go from 160 pound skinny, lanky, frail, weak alcoholic who was not taking his health seriously. I show pictures in the presentation, like, this is not always the man I was. Drank too much and too often, to a 220 pound, like, what I thought was a beast at the time turned out a little fluffy. So anyways, now I'm up in New Hampshire with a little cousin, and I'm happier than I was at that first rock bottom. But I'm
How far
How old was I?
Well, from the incident with being jumped,
6 months.
then 6 months later.
6 months later.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I believe. Obviously, timelines.
Yeah.
I think it's about 6 months later. Because I remember I gained 10 pounds a month.
Yeah, not that much ahead, yeah.
Right. I had dabbled in fitness, like in lifting again, because I lifted back in college a lot. But after that getting jumped, I went all in. I went all in on getting as strong as possible, so that if that happened again, I was not going to run. I was going to fight, right, and be capable of fighting. So 6 months later, I'm up in New Hampshire. It's a cold winter night, and I'm pretty miserable at this point, because I don't know if you remember that winter. I think it was 2014. We had a really, really bad winter where potholes were horrible.
Yeah.
And I was in sales, right? So I managed all of Western New England, and I drove to manufacturing facilities all over Connecticut, and Connecticut roads suck, in my opinion. And it was really bad this winter because you couldn't see over these snowbanks. It was like a ridiculous winter. So I was just miserable. Okay, so I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. We're driving to TGI Fridays. And I've never been in this area before, and it's dark, and it's like that freezing rainy thing with the snowbanks and all that. And I remember the road stayed right. I thought it stayed left. So I stayed left. And I was looking down at the GPS, and I was supposed to yield. And I don't even know if there was a yield sign, but the cops ended up telling me that a lot of people get in accidents at this location. As a matter of fact, for a long time, I took photos of it, and I tried to go to court to make sure that they fixed this intersection, but it's still on me. So I looked down at the GPS. I look up, and it felt like a millisecond. I was like, oh my God, there's a lift-kitted truck, like an obnoxiously lift-kitted truck. Like, and it's right in front of my Volkswagen Passat. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is it. This is it. This is the end. So fortunately, Volkswagen Passats, I used to call it the tank. It's a very heavy, like, car, German engineering. It's just all steel. And all the airbags went off. It's 2004 Volkswagen Passat, which is awesome. So he ended up hurting his knee. I ended up hurting my face on the airbag, but I actually, in my presentation, show a picture of the car. It was completely mangled. And fortunately, we're totally okay, right? But for me, I'm 26 years old. And my father passed away in a car accident when I was 28. Now he's 17 years old and he's still got that like, sort of like invincibility, I'm a teenager complex. So he's tweeting about it like he's just glad he's getting attention. And I'm messed up by this.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what if that was it?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting in an armchair at my cousin's place. I picture this perfectly. I have whiskey in one hand with ice in it. And I'm sitting there going like, what if that was it? Now, a lot of people, my one word is legacy. That's what I live by. That's what this means to me. And a lot of people hear legacy and they think, okay, the impact that you have on others, okay, yes. But there's a very emotionalized version of that to me because what a big part of my story is I, my entire life, have heard stories about John, about my dad. And what's interesting to me is it's not about how he died, it's about how he lived. And I have watched my whole life the impact that he had. I get coached by my Aunt Joanne. I was talking to her just the other day, I think 2 days ago, and like he was her biggest influence. And she's this wildly successful leader. She has a financial firm in New York City. She's incredibly philanthropic. She's like this incredible person. And her biggest influence every day, she would tell you, is my dad. And so his impact on her, I've seen it. And people, I look just like him. And apparently act just like him, talk just like him, and all that stuff. So people have been telling me that my whole life. So you can hear legacy, but then you can experience it. And that is what I think makes me a little bit different is I lost something, and you see other kids with their dads and stuff. And when you're a kid, it just hurts because that's something I'm never going to have. But what I gained was far more because I grew up with women who poured into me and believed in me, and I didn't have to have a masculine front. And I think one of the reasons why I'm here today, honestly, is because in hindsight, and thank you for that, is I need to be a male role model because one of my mentors, his name's Dr. Robert Scott, and he said this. He's 69 years old, prolific author. He said this. He said, my favorite part about you, Alan, is that you had to figure it all out on your own. And not in terms of, like, my mom was always there to guide me, but she could only tell me what she knew. When it comes from being a man, I had to figure out on my own. I had 0 male role models that were consistent in my life that really poured into me. And when I say that with a grain of salt because 0 consistent ones. As a matter of fact, Kiki's dad, he knows to this day. I just went to a wedding with his sister, and he came up to me and he said, I'm so interested in what you're doing. He's always been a mentor to me. My ex-girlfriend Jenny, her father, went to WPI. He was a mentor to me. So I had wonderful male mentors. But I never had one consistent sort of true north male role model to look up to. And for any guy, that's like a thing. So fast forward, and I thought that was it, that car accident. So I'm sitting there going, oh my God, like if that was it, would the impact that I had be even close to what it could have been? Did I courageously chase my dreams? Am I proud of the man that I became? And here's the interesting thing. So fast forward again to not long ago. It's the anniversary of my dad's passing. And my sister posts a photo of flowers on his grave. And she says, I love you, Daddy, and this whole thing. And I repost it, and I'm crying. And I said something along the lines of, I just want to make you proud. And people commented on it saying that you are, like, he is proud of you. Here's the interesting thing. Someone snaps me the next day. Her name's Caitlin. She lost her mother not long ago. And she said, I feel the exact same way. I just want to make her proud. And what I said to her was, from an outside perspective, it's so obvious. All she really wants for you is for you to be proud of yourself. And then I went, oh my God, that's all my dad would want, is for me to be proud of myself. So this is the thing. When I got in that car accident, and that could have been it, I realized the truth. I am capable of so much more. It's not even funny. Instead of developing a virtue and being a male role model, I was escaping into a vice called alcohol. Instead of developing my mind, I was poisoning it. And that is the cold, hard truth. And after that, I was all in.
The poisoning it, or that using those, the alcohol or whatever was going on there, was really, though, to numb the pain. Is that true?
Yeah.
That things that you weren't
Without
ready,
knowing it.
Yeah, without knowing it.
And growing up around it as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's how, when you're in emotional pain, you can either escape it with a vice. And a vice isn't just alcohol. It could be marijuana, it could be Netflix, it could be pretending to yourself, telling yourself a story, everything's fine when you know it's not.
And even saying it's a vice, I'm like, well, who are we to judge? But something is,
Right.
you're putting something over this blocking so that you don't see or feel the pain. It's so hard.
Exactly. You're trying to escape the truth rather than developing from it.
Yeah, but not because there's something wrong with you. It just hurts.
Right. It just hurts. Like we talked about, sitting in the pain.
Yeah.
So in the preamble, I talked to you a little about, you always talk about my true north.
Yeah.
To me, what this represents is a quote that I say all the time. You cannot see the stars during the day. They're always there, but sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which we simply could not within the light. Now, what does that mean rather than just some phrase? When you're in deep emotional pain, it's really easy to talk about it. But when you're in it and you don't know what to do, if you cannot escape it and really sit in there and have the courage to sit in it and be vulnerable, you're going to notice something. You're going to have a breakthrough. The mind cannot stay in pain forever. It can't. And here's the thing. This is what I've found. If your present is painful and your past is painful, you have no choice but to go into the future and create a brighter future, a vision. And this is what I've noticed by interviewing people on the podcast. The people with the brightest, the biggest dreams are usually the ones that had painful present and painful past. You can't escape the now. You can't escape into the past. Now you have to go into the future and believe in it and actually start taking, action toward it. I said this, I was on a date recently. I said this to the beautiful woman I was with. I said, I think the tools required of us to climb out of the darkest holes also build skyscrapers. And I think your adversity is your advantage if you can use it to develop the emotional muscle that you otherwise just wouldn't have. And now you can go do extraordinary things that other people are like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Compared to what I did a triathlon not long ago, right? And people were like, oh my God, you didn't train, you only got 3 hours of sleep. Like, how did you do that? I came in like 72nd out of like 400. Here's the truth.
That came up in the Zoom call when I was talking with Tom.
Did it?
I said, yeah, you got Alan to humble himself.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if it worked. Ready? Here's the thing. When people said like a triathlon, that's going to be so hard, here's the God honest truth. Compared to what I've been through, that's a joke.
Yeah.
That's a joke. I can take that pain. That pain's nothing compared to the emotional pain I've been through. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's developing me. And don't get me wrong, a triathlon is hard, but compared to some, that's the thing that they don't teach us in books. That's the thing you can't learn in books.
You didn't cry at the triathlon?
No. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
No, physical pain is different than emotional pain. I can take the physical. Let's go. Bring it.
Yeah.
But like, that's the thing. You're developing your emotional muscle to go do extraordinary things because of the dark stuff that you climbed out of, if you don't escape it. If you escape it, you're not developing anything. You're just sitting where you are and you're going to stay there. But if you have the courage to sit in it and like courageously fight for what you believe in, love fiercely even though you might lose love, like, to me, that's the thing. How courageously did I fight for what I believe in? That's the question now, like after the car accident. And how fiercely did I love? Those are the two. I always say on the podcast, hardest workers with the biggest hearts. Like, how fiercely did you love? How courageously did you fight for what you believe in? Not what other people told you to do, but who you are. So that's when I went all in. I'm going to be a model. I remember saying I wanted to be an Abercrombie model when I was 17 years old in Mrs. Puckett's class, and everybody laughed at me. And she came up to me afterwards and said, Alan, you could do it. You're really good looking. And I remember getting made fun of, and now I am a model. So
there,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine anyone in this position and how it seems as we talk about it like, yeah, this is what I did. But how do you go from this dark place or shame or, whatever, that pain is, and ask for help? Find someone to just tell about it? Every time you tell the story, I see great emotion. I've heard you tell you came at Confident Women Consortium and spoke, and I saw the passion, emotion come out there, here again. How do we help people with that next step of, we're not going to fix it, but every time you talk about it, something changes?
Right. So I often say the suppression of self-expression leads to depression. So if you're hiding, I think a lot of us are so afraid to be criticized because we did get laughed at, right?
Yeah.
We raised our hand, had a dumb question, and got laughed at. One of my teachers to this day, my favorite teacher of all time, Mrs. Pryor, she yelled at the class and said he didn't ask a dumb question.
Yeah.
Like, the whole class laughed at me. And in high school, I was kind of a loser, or at least perceived as one, because I was the nerdy kid, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know where I fit.
Yeah.
And I got laughed at a lot, honestly. And I remember her yelling at this one guy who's really popular. He was really popular because he was an athlete, and in high school, that's all anyone cares about for some reason.
Yeah.
So anyways, she yelled at him and said, dumb questions lead to good ones, and he's here to learn.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I passed the AP test, and he didn't.
Yeah.
Right? And so she was there to defend me. Do you have people in your corner that are willing to defend you? Do you have people in your corner who believe in you so that when you're in the dark, they can be there so that you can borrow that belief? That's one of my main things is like, I believed in Kevin more than he did in that moment when he messaged me when he was considering suicide. And I genuinely did believe in him. It wasn't fake, it was sincere. And he felt that. And he's like, if Alan is that next level, quote unquote, and again, this is one of the parts of influence, you have to have what the other person admires. If you don't, then you won't have influence, because you can't influence someone without knowing what already influences them. So at the time, I had the life of freedom, I had the beautiful girlfriend, I had the physique, and that's what Kevin valued at the time. Right? So he was willing to listen to me. So you have to embody what people think they want so that they'll listen to the other stuff, so that you can instill belief in them. And then once they believe in themselves, they take a new action, they start to see, oh my God, I can do this too.
I suspect, he did admire all those things in you, but I don't think that's what made him call you. That's my sense. I think what made him call you is he knew you would not judge and you would listen, which is another phenomenal quality that you have.
Thank you. So there's a quote that I tried to live by for the longest time, and I still haven't perfected this. I'm trying to. Every day. I literally want to eliminate judgment from my life. I said that when Shauna Pelton was speaking at your event.
Yeah.
I said that. That was my main thing. She's like, what are you struggling with? I'm like, judgment. I want to eliminate it from my life. And then it turns out there was a whole other thing that we opened up about. But you cannot help someone while simultaneously judging them.
Yeah.
And so that's all we want. We just want to be heard and cared about. At the end of the day, we want to be loved. And for who we really are, not who we're pretending to be. Not this I'm perfect front, I'm awesome, trust me. No, it's crap. I have a close friend of mine who is this incredible human being, one of my favorite people in the entire world. But she puts up this front because she's not appreciated for who she really is.
Yeah.
And I see that time and time again. And I think one of the reasons why Kevin's come so far is because he's had that space to really express who he actually is, rather than this facade of I have everything together, even though I really deep down don't have any confidence.
Yeah, just love me as I am. We're out of time.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, I know.
That did go by really fast. It's interesting because watching you and Kevin, it went by nice and slow. It's fully immersed, but it does go by fast when you're in it.
Yeah. You got really vulnerable today. I'm impressed. Thank you for going so deep with this.
I didn't anticipate that, but I think something beautiful came of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's thanks to you and this platform. So.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have more people on, and people will give us some feedback on if this has helped or how else we can help, because we're here to do that.
Absolutely.
With all our hearts.
I encourage everyone to tell their story and to choose the empowering version.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.